Amari Cooper has been a perfect fit for this offense, right? He's on time. He's where you need him to be. He's reliable. And he's like Jarvis Landry with 4.3 speed. Everything Jarvis was for this offense with 4.3 speed. The Cleveland Browns got a win after a few days ago. We were talking about a humiliating loss. What a great week to have a short week, right? Because if this were any other week, we still be talking about that loss. Now we get to talk about a victory. Cleveland Browns at home on Thursday Night Football, where it is the advantage, beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, look, I'm not going to act like this wasn't a win that they should expect to get. These are the teams that the Browns should expect to get. I understand the brand name of the Pittsburgh Steelers is one that we are not used to beating, but this is where the Browns are at this point of their program, and this is where the Steelers are at that point of their program. The Browns have the marquee players. The Browns have the guys you can't stop, right? Nick Chubb and all of those names and such and such. But Browns are on that side of it. It's weird thinking about it. But this whole time, I really wasn't processing this like I usually process games against the Steelers. This really felt like how Cincinnati games felt like for me for quite a while, where it's like, yes, it's a division game, it's a rival, but this is one that we feel like we should win, right? Now that's where Pittsburgh's at in this whole conversation. And who knows how their future shakes out, how the Kenny Pickett era ends up for them. But at this point right now where we speak of, even with Jacoby Brissett, the Browns are the better football team. And that's what showed itself today. Now, there are some things I want to be critical about this team in victory, which, hey, it's always great to be critical in victory because we could be talking about onside kicks and all that garbage, right? But there are some things I most certainly want to praise, and I'm going to make sure I give people their flowers before I start, saying what they need to improve or what I feel like could have been better in this game. So first things first, let's start with the offensive performances, right? I think that's the most important thing to start with. And look, man, it's been 2 weeks. I think you can even count the Carolina game where they got a lot of scoring possessions in. I've been pointing this out. This is not a bad offense, man. I'm going to keep saying this until people start to get it. This is not a bad offense. It's a limited offense. And as each game goes on and as Amari Cooper and Jacoby Brissett gain chemistry with each other, the limitations look smaller and smaller as each day goes on. Let's hope that trend continues. I still believe it's a limited offense, but it's not a bad offense. Now, defensively, we need more consistent play out of those guys, but that's not where you have the talent concern is on the defensive side of the ball. The talent concern is something that can't be overcome during the course of a year. The play calling, all this stuff, like that stuff can get fixed on the defensive side of the ball during the course of the year. Talent can't. And the Browns are in a unique situation where talent can be fixed in the future for the quarterback position specifically if that was a problem. But Jacoby Brissett has played well through 2 games. And I think even that first game, it was much overblown if he had a bad game or not, because I think he played well at the end of it to put the Browns in position to kick that field goal. But nonetheless, I said these things about Jacoby Brissett months ago. He's going to be consistent. He's going to be a guy who's going to take what's there. One of the benefits of a Jacoby Brissett that we're seeing is, and I look, I'm in this situation with when I talk about quarterback play where Baker Mayfield is the last guy that was here in this offense. He's going to undoubtedly be what you compare Jacoby Brissett to. So I'm not trying to trash on Baker any more than what's already been out there. But I do have to compare Jacoby Brissett's body of work to something, and Baker Mayfield is that something I can compare it to because he's the only other guy that's taken significant snaps in this offense. And the reason I've always felt like during the course of the offseason that a Jacoby Brissett might be a better fit for this offense despite him not being the more talented player is everything that we saw today. Right? Somebody who's patient, somebody who does not take a lot of sacks, somebody who gets rid of the ball if need be, somebody who does not get you behind the sticks. One of the things we noticed this year from last year, just the first 3 games, a decrease in offensive procedural penalties. A lot of that's on the quarterback, right? When you get those procedural penalties, that's on the leadership of Jacoby Brissett. He deserves a pat on the back and his flowers for that. Another thing that I like with Jacoby Brissett is he's not going to force things, but he also doesn't have to feel like he's the reason things go right, right? With Baker, what we notice when he has a good game, he's at his best when he's throwing to like 8 different targets, and that was the whole friction between him and guys in like Jarvis and Odell and even David Njoku to an extent was he would never feed the hot hand. As a wide receiver, right? If Odell's hot in the game, he's not going to say, okay, I'm just looking at Odell and we're going to get the ball to Odell. That was never his game. He was always, I'm going to be this. I don't want to make it sound mean. He was always trying to figure out who he thinks he should get the ball to rather than who's hot right now, right? They play quarterback with 2 different philosophies. I'll just say that. And with Jacoby Brissett, what's nice about it is, hey, now you have an Amari Cooper on your roster and a guy who's saying, hey, if Amari's cooking him, I'm just going to throw to Amari till they can't stop it no more, right? And that's what Jacoby Brissett has done. He in this game, there were spurts where he was like, okay, you're going to stay in cover 1, you're going to load the box, you're going to give Amari one-on-one looks with your third corner. Okay, cool. I'm going to just throw it to Amari. Amari. Okay, you're tired of Amari getting those chunk plays? All right, cool. Oh, you're just gonna put more guys out on the edges, but not get rid of that stack box. Okay. David Njoku seam. Oh, you're tired of that? You're gonna let the box loose? You're gonna finally clear the box? Cool. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. That is how the Browns kind of beat the Steelers into submission, right? Because they wanted to stack the box. They wanted to take things away. But his connection with Amari Cooper is going to force people to empty out those boxes, right? And that's what Baker couldn't do last year, right? His obsession with wanting to get the ball to as many different targets as possible. And that probably comes from him wanting his play to be more reflective of his intelligence, right? So he looks at a play, he breaks it down, and he thinks this is the guy that's going to get the ball rather than this is the best player on the field right now. It's, again, 2 different philosophies. I'm not poo-pooing on one or the other, but I think one does work way better in this offense. And that's how Jacoby Brissett thinks about it. And because Jacoby goes about the quarterback position this way, it really forced the Steelers to either keep getting eaten by those chunks or let loose on that box for a drive or 2. And when they did, Nick Chubb certainly did attack, right? So now what we're going to see going forward probably is less stacked boxes against the Cleveland Browns because people are actually worried about Amari Cooper, right? Amari Cooper has had 3 excellent games, 2 100-yard games back-to-back. And I'm going to be real with you. I think if you ask Amari Cooper how he played today, he would tell you he didn't play well. He had 100 yards and a touchdown, and I don't think he feels like he had a good game because he left 100 yards and another touchdown on the field, right? There was that one play, Jacoby had him dead to rights, just threw the ball hard at his face. He just wasn't ready for it, and he was gone if he catches that. Like Amari was gone. And there was that other play where he had a huge chunk, but he ran out of bounds, just was unconscious with it on the scramble drill, and then didn't realize that he did that. So he left some yards on the field. He could have had a 200-yard game if he wanted to. He knows that. And I promise you, he's not looking at this like I played good. Ha, ha, ha. Like he's thinking like, I got to be better than that. Right. And that's what he looked like when he was on the sideline. So, Amari Cooper has been a perfect fit for this offense, right? He's on time. He's where you need him to be. He's reliable. And he's like Jarvis Landry with 4.3 speed. Everything Jarvis was for this offense with 4.3 speed. And that makes him a number 1 receiver, which makes him able to get more targets. David Njoku, incredible yak stuff today, man. Like he wouldn't go down after the first tackle. And now we're starting to see a trio form on offense, right? Jacoby Brissett, if it comes down to it, he's comfortable going to Amari Cooper. He's comfortable going to David Njoku. Those are his guys, right? So now if you're playing the Cleveland Browns, it can't be as simple as I'm just going to stop Chubb and Hunt and let Jacoby Brissett beat me. Because he's proven he's comfortable enough with those 2 receivers that if you don't have a good plan for that, you could get beat by Jacoby Brissett. You know what I mean? Credit to him. Credit to the work that those dudes put in training camp that went unsung for the most part because we were talking about everything else. And look, I understand why we were talking about everything else. But that's what we was talking about, right? And when I say we, I don't know if I was talking about it a little bit, but I was also talking about Jacoby Brissett. But, we were all a part of it at some point, right? And That's what Jacoby has done well, and that's what I think he's excelled at. Nick Chubb, I'm gonna just say this: Nick Chubb has been a great running back for every year he's been on the Cleveland Browns. He's been an excellent, like above board, great top 5 running back. I think we're starting to see the best of Nick Chubb. Like, I don't know what prime Nick Chubb looks like, but we're close. We're close to prime Nick Chubb. Like, that man is running at a different level. He is quicker than he's ever been. He's harder to tackle than he's ever been. He's more explosive than he's ever been. He's more determined than he's ever been. He runs harder than he ever has. This is a Nick Chubb who is undoubtedly, there's no debate right now, especially with Derrick Henry looking like he's cooked. He's the best running back in the NFL. And you could bring up Jonathan Taylor and look, they're good players behind him. Jonathan Taylor, anybody behind him. Nick Chubb on a whole different level. You watch Nick Chubb and you're just in amazement at what he can do. Jonathan Taylor's really good. Nick Chubb is something different. You know what I mean? And if he plays like this for a few more years, we're talking about gold jacket stuff here for Nick Chubb. Just the best I've ever seen him. Ever. Like, there's been years where it's been close between him and Kareem, who's the better, and you can have a little bit of a debate behind it, even though Nick's always been better than Kareem. This is like, nah. Nick is at a different level this year, and I want to see that continue. Offensive line play, I thought Jed played well, had an ankle injury, came back from it, played well after it. Joe was really good today. Wyatt was a bit up and down in pass protection, but really good in run stuffing, as always. I thought Ethan, he had a couple of off plays here and there, but I felt like he held up pretty well down the stretch. Who else is left to talk about? Jack Conklin was back. I think he played well and he didn't get injured. And thank goodness, right? Like, I every time Jack Conklin has come back in the last year and a half, like, he's gotten injured again. So I'm just happy he got through a football game. Browns lost some guys to injury. Anthony Walker got a knee sprain. I think JOK had a groin. We'll see what happens with those two. Obviously, you're already out Clowney. You don't want to miss more guys on the defense, and I'll talk about the defense in just a minute here. But offensive line-wise, I thought they were good. Harrison Bryant, he got to gain some weight if you want to be out there as tight end too. He's a bit thin and he's getting just worn out there as a blocker. And it's not because he doesn't have good technique or effort. He's just thin. So he needs to get a little bit bigger there. But again, overall, really good effort on offense. I like how they're moving. 28 points from the offense. This not 28. I think they got 23 before 23 points from this offense. Not a great output, but given that you're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and this is a defense that has been pretty good the last few weeks, I'll take it. Minkah Fitzpatrick was a non-factor. I'll take it. Cam Hayward was a factor, but he didn't blow up your game plan. I'll take it. We know what the problems that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense under Mike Tomlin has given Kevin Stefanski teams in the past. This is, I would say, outside of the playoff game, it's probably the second best performance offense a Kevin Stefanski offense has had against a Mike Tomlin defense. Now, again, they weren't at full strength. They didn't have TJ Watt. Next time the Browns play, they'll probably have TJ Watt. We'll probably have Deshaun Watson, right? So we'll see how that shakes out. But that's what I got to say about the offense. Let's talk about the defense. Up and down, I feel like I was being harsh. I'm going to be honest. When I was going through my thoughts on the live stream, I feel like I was being a bit harsh at the beginning of this game because I was carrying on a lot of frustration from the week before. And I don't think I'm the only one that was doing that. The fact is in the first quarter, they were pretty good. They held the Steelers to no points. This drive that the Steelers scored on did start in the first quarter, so that did start to leak there. And I think there was only like one possession each for each team in the first quarter anyways. The second quarter was a bit shaky, right? That's where we saw some of the issues. Now, they were doing some interesting stuff. They played more man. They had Denzel Ward out there on the island. That did not work out. Denzel Ward was not good today. He made a couple plays down the stretch at the end, but they were killing him on them comeback routes. So I understand why they had Denzel in man. They just didn't want any coverage bust this week, and they figured the simplest thing to do is just put Denzel on the island on the boundary against Deontay Johnson, and then leave him alone there so we don't have to worry about a coverage bust. If Denzel gets beat, he gets beat, but we don't have to think it's a coverage bust, right? So in a short week, that's the kind of solution you can duct tape together. I don't expect that to be a long-term thing. But Yeah, that didn't work out. And look, I know people are going to be concerned about Denzel Ward. He did not play well, but also Denzel Ward has these games every year where he does not play well. We have to remember Denzel Ward's a really good corner, but the thing that holds him back from being one of the best corners in football is that he has matchup issues, right? And certain matchups he's really good at, right? Jamar Chase, he's really good. He was really good against Jamar Chase. Bigger receivers usually, that's where Denzel Ward shines. But those smaller, quicker guys like a Deontay Johnson, he struggles with those guys sometimes. And that tended to be the problem. He was left on man. It just wasn't a good look for him. But I would say it was an especially bad look because of the coverages, because of how they had to do things on the short week and they didn't want coverage. But so I'll be a little bit lenient on Denzel Ward. He has to play better, but I'm confident he will play better. He's always has had some of these hiccups in the season and then come back and bounce back well. Myles Garrett, a lot of talk about Myles Garrett. We're probably going to hear, especially if the Browns didn't win this game. What I need people to understand is Myles Garrett had the biggest impact on that game of anybody before he even stepped on the field, because the game plan from Mike Tomlin was, we're going to do everything possible to not have to worry about Myles. And since Jadeveon Clowney was hurt, it allowed them to do that. See, the biggest impact that Jadeveon Clowney has outside of being a great player for the Cleveland Browns defense is he forces teams to play the Browns honest, right? And when he's not there, teams aren't going to be honest with the Browns, right? And what I mean by that is what we saw today, right? Every time Myles was on a one-on-one rush, they moved that pocket immediately right after the snap, right? Roll right, immediate. It's a play that's going to roll right there. They played keep away from Myles Garrett. They triple teamed him. Sometimes it felt like they were quad teaming him. They were holding him a ton. It didn't get called. Like, this is why Jadeveon Clowney's important. Not because he allows Myles to do more, but because he forces offenses to be honest with the Cleveland Browns. So the most they can do to adjust to Myles is a double team, a chip block, an occasional triple team, and it has a cost. When it's Isaac Rochelle, no disrespect to Isaac Rochelle or Alex Wright, they're not Jadeveon Clowney. The respect is not there from offensive coordinators, so they're going to play to keep away from Myles' game. So that's why Jadeveon is so important. He forces defenses to play them honest, and he's a really good run defender. I think some of that showed up in that second quarter. They were having a lot of success playing keep away from Myles Garrett, rolling that pocket, and then winning in some of these man zone looks that the Browns were running, especially along the boundary. So good scheming, I think, by Matt Canada in that Pittsburgh offense, at least in that second quarter. I think they really did a good job of trying to just force Myles out the game. But again, you can't tell me Myles didn't have an impact on the game when the whole game plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers was getting Myles out the game. That in turn is a massive impact on the game. The Browns weren't able to capitalize on what they were doing, and there are certainly ways they could. They didn't capitalize on it, but the opportunity was there. And then Myles, at the end of this game, I felt like he played well in the fourth quarter, really had a couple of key pressures that forced some bad throws from Mitchell Trubisky. Again, not everything he does shows up on the stat sheet, but it will show up probably in the film room. And I'll see that when I look at the film probably on Tuesday. So Myles, like, not his greatest game, not even a good game for Myles Garrett. It was a mid game for Myles Garrett, but he'll probably bounce back, have a better game than this. And he was playing injured on a short week, so I'll be lenient there. JOK was excellent until he got out, but Jacob Phillips, man, he was having a horrible first half. But then Anthony Walker went out. He got those snaps. He got that opportunity. And boy, did he take advantage. He made some plays in the fourth quarter. And that's why I want to talk about is the players that made plays in the fourth quarter. MJ Emerson, and Jacob Phillips, I feel like really stepped up. Sione Takitaki really stepped up in the fourth quarter. And I think Perion Winfrey even made a play in limited snaps. And Greg Newsome was there too. They're avoiding Greg Newsome like the plague. Teams are like, I don't know how many targets he has, but he barely gets targeted these days. Grant played well. I want to point that out. He got a lot of criticism last week. I think he played well. John Johnson played well. He got a lot of criticism. I think he played well. And ultimately, there's going to be a lot of complaints about this Browns defense that only gave up 17 points, and which is actually the Steelers' lowest point total of the year. Well, no. Sorry, 14 last week to New England, but it's right around that defensive effort that other teams have had around the Steelers. So it's not like it's an outlier, but I understand why people was frustrated. That second quarter wasn't a good look. And I thought that drive that the Steelers had after halftime, that was a terrible look for this defense. Luckily, they got bailed out by some penalties and they forced Pittsburgh off the field that way, and they made enough plays to get them off the field. But boy, there were moments in that drive where I was just really frustrated with this defense. But they really brought it together in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter, lights out. Couldn't complain. They gave up a field goal. Who cares? They made them take like 6 minutes to get it. I'm fine with it, right? Like, sometimes scoring isn't the death of everything. If you're up 9 and they get a field goal, it's about how long did it take them to get a field goal. And that's what was important. The fact was, like, they had to use all their timeouts and get to the 2-minute warning to do it. So, yeah, I was fine with that at that point. And they closed it out. Special teams, I have to talk about a little bit. I don't want to say somebody should get fired in the video where the Browns won. But I'm not advocating for anybody to get fired in the middle of the year. But I do think we really need to reevaluate Mike Prefer's role with this team at the end of the year. It's been a mess for 3 years and going on, 2 years and going. The alignment, the 12 players on the field on special teams all the time, punts. Remember the Ravens game where we had 12 players on the field 4 times in a row? Ridiculous. The constant bad coverages, the bad coaching for kick and punt returners where they're taking questionable balls out the end zone and questionable balls for return. Like, the coaching is bad. The bad development of kick and punt returners, the bad development of kickers. Like, yes, K. York's good, but you drafted him in the 4th round. He's a finished product. Bohorkowitz is good, but you signed him in free agency. The development projects have been bad. I understand he has a role behind the scenes as like an assistant head coach, but he should not be the special teams coordinator anymore. This has been a poor job by him. And we already have enough communication problems with the defensive side of the ball. We don't need to add that on the special team side. And the onside kick coverages has been terrible. Just kill that play. Like, whatever play they're running for that onside kick or coverage they're running for that onside kick, it needs to be rethought and changed. Switch it to something that works, because that's another almost disaster this week with Donovan Peoples-Jones absolutely fumbling it. But thankfully, Anthony Schwartz batted that thing out of bounds before trouble came. So, yeah, the punting and kicking is good, but that's because you signed good. Well, you drafted one good kicker and you signed somebody who is already good. The development on everything that you asked for Mike Prefer, the defense on special teams has been poor. Teams have gotten fake punts off on us. Teams have gotten big returns on us. It needs to be changed, in my opinion. Not now. It's not such a dumpster fire that you got to get rid of somebody now. And I'm not an advocate for firing coaches in the middle of the year because I don't think it helps. It just makes us feel better for like 2 minutes. But a reevaluation might be necessary if this doesn't improve soon. And that's it. I covered all 3 phases of the game. Overall, happy with this win. Browns get 10 days, 10 much needed days to get things together before they play the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. So that should be fun. It's a game that, Browns could win. But that's my thoughts on this week's game. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night.